The engagement hall was full of soft lights and quiet laughter, but something unseen hung in the air. It was the kind of feeling that stayed hidden behind smiles, waiting for the wrong moment to show itself. Everyone thought this night was only about joy. No one knew how close it was to turning into something else. Emma stood near the corner of the room, holding a glass of water she had not touched. She watched people move around her like a slow river. Her younger sister Lily sat in the center, glowing with happiness, her hand resting proudly in her fiancé's. Lily looked carefree, safe, and loved. Emma felt happy for her, truly. But beneath that happiness was a knot that refused to loosen. The decorations were simple but beautiful. White flowers lined the tables, small candles flickered gently, and soft music played in the background. Their parents had worked hard to make everything perfect. Helen, their mother, walked around checking every detail, smiling at guests, pretending not to be tired. Frank, their father, stood nearby, greeting relatives with quiet pride. To everyone else, they looked like a perfect family enjoying a perfect moment. Emma felt like a guest in her own family. She adjusted her dress and took a slow breath. She had promised herself she would get through this night without drawing attention. She had rehearsed calm answers in her head, planned when to smile, when to nod, and when to step away. She told herself that tonight was Lily's night, not hers. But secrets have weight. And Emma had been carrying hers for a long time. She remembered how different things used to be. Years ago, she was the one her parents worried about the most. Quiet, distant, always working, always busy, never explaining much. They thought she struggled, that life had been hard on her. Emma never corrected them. It was easier to let them believe she was still finding her way than to explain the truth. Now, as she watched Lily laugh with relatives, Emma felt a mix of love and sadness. Lily had always been open with the family. She shared her dreams, her fears, her plans. Emma had done the opposite. She built walls instead of bridges. And tonight, those walls felt thinner than ever. A group of relatives gathered near Emma, talking loudly about the engagement, the wedding plans, and how quickly life moved. Emma smiled politely when someone spoke to her, but she did not join the conversation. Her mind was elsewhere. She kept scanning the room without realizing it, her eyes landing again and again on one man. Uncle Richard. He stood near the buffet table, laughing with a cousin, his voice louder than necessary. He was known for asking questions no one wanted to answer. He did not mean harm, but he had a way of digging into things that were not his business. Emma felt her stomach tighten every time he looked in her direction. She told herself she was imagining things. Emma stepped outside for a moment, letting the cool air touch her face. The noise softened behind her. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She reminded herself why she had kept her life private. Not out of shame, but out of fear. Fear of changing how her parents looked at her. Fear of becoming a stranger in her own family. She thought of the house. The one no one knew about. The one that represented years of silent work, missed holidays, sleepless nights, and constant pressure. It was more than a house. It was proof that she had survived on her own. And it was the reason her heart beat faster every time someone asked about her life. Inside, Lily's laughter echoed again, bright and pure. Emma smiled softly. She wanted this night to stay beautiful for her sister. She did not want shadows to touch it. When Emma returned to the hall, her mother caught her arm gently. Helen looked at her with warmth and concern. She asked if Emma was feeling all right. Emma nodded and said she was just tired. Helen squeezed her hand, clearly relieved, and went back to her guests. That simple touch almost broke Emma. She felt the distance between what her mother believed and what was real. She wondered what Helen would think if she knew everything. Would she be proud? Angry? Hurt that Emma had stayed silent for so long? The questions pressed down on her chest. The party continued. Glasses clinked. Speeches were made. People praised Lily and her fiancé, talking about love, family, and new beginnings. Emma listened, half present, half lost in thought. Every happy word felt sharp against her nerves. Then she noticed Uncle Richard walking closer. Her breath slowed. She watched him greet her parents, then Lily, then a few guests. His eyes flicked toward Emma, curious and alert. He smiled and nodded, as if he had just remembered something interesting. Emma felt the room shift, even before anything happened. She told herself to stay calm. Nothing had happened yet. It was just her fear talking. Still, her hands trembled slightly as she set her glass down. The lights seemed brighter. The music seemed quieter. Emma suddenly felt very exposed, as if the walls around her life had become transparent. She looked at her parents again. Frank stood proudly beside Helen, unaware of the storm forming nearby. They deserved peace, Emma thought. They deserved this night without surprises. But life did not always ask permission. As Uncle Richard stopped a few steps away from her, Emma felt her heartbeat in her ears. The moment stretched, thin and fragile. Around them, laughter continued, unaware of how close everything was to changing. Emma did not know it yet, but the celebration was standing on the edge of a truth that could no longer stay hidden. And once spoken, nothing would be the same again. The party moved forward, but Emma felt stuck in place. Time passed in small pieces, broken by laughter and music, yet her thoughts refused to follow. She stood near the wall again, watching people as if they were part of a distant scene she could not enter. Uncle Richard had stepped away, but his presence still lingered. Emma kept replaying the way he looked at her, like he knew something, or wanted to know. She told herself it was nothing. He was always curious. He always asked questions. That was who he was. Still, her chest felt tight. Emma watched her father talking with a group of old friends. Frank laughed softly, nodding as someone spoke about family and tradition. He looked relaxed, proud, comfortable in a way Emma rarely saw anymore. She wondered when she had last felt that kind of ease around her own family. Her mother passed by again, carrying a plate of desserts. Helen's smile never left her face, but Emma could see the tiredness in her eyes. Helen had spent days preparing for this night, wanting everything to be perfect for Lily. Emma felt guilt rise inside her. She had done nothing to help. She had arrived quietly, stayed quiet, and planned to leave quietly. That had always been her way. She remembered how, years ago, she had started pulling away. First it was work. Then it was distance. Then it became silence. Phone calls turned shorter. Visits became rare. She never lied, but she never told the full truth either. She shared just enough to keep questions away. Someone called her name, pulling her back to the present. It was a distant cousin asking how work was going. Emma smiled politely and gave a simple answer. Busy. Things were fine. The words came easily because she had said them so many times before. The cousin nodded and moved on, satisfied. Emma felt both relieved and empty. She looked toward Lily again. Her sister was opening gifts now, surrounded by friends. Lily's face lit up with each one, her joy open and honest. Emma loved that about her. Lily had never learned how to hide her feelings. Emma had learned too well. Emma shifted her weight and noticed Uncle Richard across the room again. He was speaking to someone, but his eyes kept drifting back to her. Not in a threatening way. More like curiosity mixed with interest. Emma felt a chill run through her. She turned away and walked toward the window, pretending to admire the view outside. The city lights glowed softly in the distance. Somewhere out there was her house. Quiet. Private. Safe. The place where she did not have to explain herself to anyone. The thought gave her a small sense of comfort. Behind her, conversations blended into a low hum. She heard bits of talk about money, careers, weddings, and success. Words that once meant little to her now felt sharp. She wondered if anyone would speak differently if they knew the truth about her life. Emma thought about how her parents still believed she lived simply. A small apartment. Long hours. Slow progress. They worried about her future, not knowing she had already built one. She told herself she had protected them from worry. Sometimes she wondered if she had really protected herself instead. She felt a presence beside her. Uncle Richard stood there, holding a drink, his expression friendly but thoughtful. He commented on the view, said it was nice. Emma agreed, her voice calm even though her heart raced. They stood in silence for a moment. It felt heavy. He asked how long she was staying in town. Emma answered briefly. He nodded, as if filing the information away. Then he smiled and said he had heard she was doing well for herself. The words were simple, but they landed hard. Emma felt her throat tighten. She replied with a small laugh and said she was managing. Uncle Richard did not push, but his eyes searched her face, as if he were trying to read between the lines. Before she could say anything else, someone called him away. He excused himself and left. Emma released a breath she did not realize she was holding. Her hands shook slightly. She stepped away from the window and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes for a second. She told herself to calm down. Nothing had happened. Yet the feeling inside her would not fade. The party grew louder as the night went on. More guests arrived. More drinks were poured. The mood stayed light, but Emma felt like she was walking on thin ice. Every laugh sounded too loud. Every pause felt dangerous. She noticed her parents watching her a few times. Helen's eyes lingered with concern. Frank looked confused, as if sensing something was off but unable to name it. Emma avoided their gaze. She did not trust herself to smile convincingly anymore. She wondered what would happen if the truth came out tonight. Not just the house, but everything else. The years of effort. The choices she made alone. The life she built without asking for help. Would her parents feel proud, or would they feel shut out? The thought scared her more than anything. Emma moved closer to Lily, hoping her sister's energy would ground her. Lily hugged her tightly, thanking her for coming, for supporting her. Emma hugged back, holding on a second longer than usual. Lily did not notice the tension in Emma's body. She was too happy to see it. Emma smiled and told her how beautiful everything looked. Lily beamed and returned to her guests. As Emma stepped back, she caught Uncle Richard watching again. This time, his expression was different. More serious. More focused. Emma felt the warning rise inside her like a quiet alarm. She looked around the room, at her family, the guests, the decorations, the joy. Everything felt fragile, like glass waiting to crack. She realized then that secrets never stay hidden forever. They wait. They grow. And they choose their own moment to appear. Emma straightened her shoulders. Whatever was coming, she could feel it drawing closer. The night was no longer just a celebration. It was a test. And she was standing at its center, whether she wanted to be or not. The moment came quietly, without warning, as if it had been waiting patiently all along. The music softened, and people began to settle into small groups, talking more calmly now that most of the formal part of the engagement was over. Emma stood near her parents, hoping their presence would make her feel steady. Instead, it made her more aware of what she was hiding from them. Uncle Richard approached with a relaxed smile, holding his drink loosely. He greeted Helen and Frank first, speaking warmly, complimenting the party, praising Lily. Both parents smiled, proud and pleased. Emma watched closely, her senses sharp, her body tense. She felt it before it happened. A small shift in the air. A pause that lasted a second too long. Uncle Richard turned to Emma. He asked how she had been, his tone friendly, almost casual. Emma answered politely, keeping her words short. She hoped that would be the end of it. She hoped he would move on to someone else, another topic, another harmless question. Instead, he smiled wider and said something that did not belong in the moment. He mentioned the house. At first, it did not fully register. The words sounded unreal, like they were spoken in a different room. Emma felt her mind freeze as he casually asked how she was managing the $2.50 million house she owned, saying it as if it were common knowledge. Silence spread faster than sound. Conversations nearby stopped mid-sentence. Laughter faded. Even the music seemed too loud suddenly, then too quiet. Heads turned slowly. Eyes focused. The room narrowed until Emma felt like she was standing alone under a bright light. Her parents froze. Helen's smile disappeared first. Her face went pale, her eyes widening as if she had misheard. Frank stopped breathing for a moment, his expression caught between confusion and disbelief. They both looked at Uncle Richard, then at Emma, then back at him again. Emma felt her heart slam against her chest. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her mouth was dry, her thoughts tangled. This was not how it was supposed to happen. This was not the moment she had imagined, not the place, not in front of everyone. Uncle Richard noticed the sudden silence and laughed lightly, unaware of the damage already done. He said he thought everyone knew. He said he had heard about the house through someone and assumed it was old news. It was not. Emma's parents stared at her as if she were a stranger. Helen's hand tightened around her plate. Frank's brows pulled together, his lips parting slightly, as if searching for words that would not come. Emma felt exposed, stripped of the control she had held onto for so long. People began whispering. Quiet murmurs filled the space, low and curious. Some guests looked impressed. Others looked confused. A few looked uncomfortable, sensing they were witnessing something deeply personal. Lily turned from across the room, her smile fading as she noticed the tension. She looked from her parents to Emma, then to Uncle Richard. She opened her mouth to ask what was happening, but no one answered her. Emma swallowed hard. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to rewind time by just a few seconds. She wanted to grab those words before they landed and push them back into silence. But words, once spoken, do not return. Helen finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She asked Emma what Uncle Richard was talking about. There was no anger in her tone yet, only shock and hurt confusion. Emma looked at her mother and felt something crack inside her. She saw all the years of worry in Helen's eyes. All the quiet concern. All the unanswered questions. Emma realized that in trying to protect herself, she may have caused a different kind of pain. Frank cleared his throat, but no words followed. His jaw tightened, his posture stiff. He looked embarrassed, blindsided, as if the ground beneath him had shifted without warning. Emma felt the weight of every gaze in the room. Uncle Richard began to sense that something was wrong. His smile faded. He tried to explain, saying he did not mean to cause trouble. He said he thought Emma had mentioned the house before. His voice trailed off as he realized the truth. Emma said nothing. She could not decide whether to speak or stay silent. Her chest burned with fear. She knew that whatever she said now would change everything. There would be no going back to how things were before. Lily stepped closer, her face pale. She whispered Emma's name, asking if it was true. Her eyes searched Emma's face, not with judgment, but with shock and concern. Emma nodded slowly. That small movement felt louder than any confession. The room reacted in waves. Some guests pretended not to listen but failed. Others leaned closer, curious. A few stepped away, giving space, respecting the tension even if they did not understand it. Helen set her plate down with shaking hands. She looked at Emma as if trying to see her clearly for the first time. Not as the daughter she worried about, but as someone she did not fully know. Frank finally spoke. He asked Emma why she had never told them. His voice was quiet, controlled, but heavy with emotion. It was not an accusation. It was a question filled with disbelief. Emma felt tears sting her eyes, but she forced them back. Crying here, now, would make everything worse. She looked down, then back up, searching for words strong enough to carry the truth. None came. The engagement party no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like a pause between breaths, a fragile moment stretched too thin. Lily's joy hovered nearby, uncertain, unsure where to go. Emma realized that the secret she had carried for years was no longer hers alone. It belonged to the room now. To her parents. To the whispers. To the silence that followed every glance. And in that moment, as her parents stood speechless before her, Emma understood that some truths do not knock before entering. They break the door down and leave everyone standing in the pieces. Emma did not speak right away. The room waited, heavy and still, as if everyone was holding the same breath. The silence pressed against her chest, forcing memories to rise, memories she had buried deep for years. She finally lifted her eyes and began to speak, slowly, carefully, as if each word had weight. She told them it had not happened overnight. The house was not a gift, not luck, not something handed to her. It was built from years of work no one had seen. long nights, missed family dinners, and mornings that started before the sun. She spoke of small steps that grew into something larger, of taking risks when fear told her not to. As she talked, her voice steadied. Emma explained how she had left home with little more than determination. How she worked jobs that drained her, learned things she never imagined she would need, and pushed through moments when giving up felt easier than continuing. She shared how lonely it was to succeed quietly, without anyone to celebrate with. Her parents listened, unmoving. She described the early days, living in small places, counting expenses, pretending everything was fine during short phone calls home. She said she never wanted to worry them. They already had enough concerns. She wanted to prove she could stand on her own before saying anything. The house, she explained, came later. By then, she was used to silence. She was used to handling things alone. Buying the house felt unreal, even to her. It was large, beautiful, and empty at first. She walked through its rooms alone, hearing only her own footsteps. That night, she cried. Not from happiness, but from the weight of it all. Emma admitted that she was afraid. Afraid that if she told them the truth, everything would change. She feared they would see her differently, that the daughter they worried about would disappear and be replaced by someone they did not recognize. She did not want praise. She did not want attention. She wanted peace. As she spoke, her voice cracked once, then steadied again. She talked about the pressure she felt, the constant need to stay strong, and the fear of failure that never truly left. Success did not erase her doubts. It only changed their shape. The room remained quiet. Even the whispers had stopped. Lily stood close, listening with wide eyes. She had known some of this, but not all. She reached for Emma's hand, holding it tightly. The simple gesture gave Emma strength. Emma told them that the house was not just a building. It was proof that she had survived things she never talked about. Loneliness. Fear. Moments when she questioned her worth. It represented freedom, but also isolation. She admitted that keeping the secret had hurt her too. Every visit home, every worried look from her parents, every question she avoided added to the distance between them. She knew now that silence had a cost. Helen's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth, shaking her head slowly, as if trying to understand how much she had missed. Frank's shoulders dropped, the tension easing just slightly, replaced by something deeper and heavier. Emma finished by saying she was sorry. Sorry for not trusting them. Sorry for choosing silence instead of honesty. She said she never meant to hurt anyone, especially not her family. Her words settled into the room like dust after a storm. No one spoke right away. Emotions hung thick in the air. The celebration had faded into the background, replaced by something raw and real. Emma stood there, exposed but lighter, as if speaking the truth had lifted a burden she had carried alone for too long. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know if forgiveness would come quickly, or at all. But for the first time in years, she was no longer hiding. And that, in itself, felt like the beginning of something new. The reaction did not come all at once. It unfolded slowly, like a wound being examined for the first time. Helen was the first to move. Her hands trembled as she reached out, then stopped, unsure. Her face showed a mix of pride, hurt, and disbelief. She asked Emma why she had felt so alone. Her voice was soft, but the question carried years of unspoken concern. Emma tried to answer, but the words tangled again. She simply said she did not want to be a burden. That answer seemed to hurt more than the truth itself. Frank turned away for a moment, pressing his lips together. He looked older suddenly, as if the weight of the revelation had added years to his face. When he turned back, his eyes were red. He said he wished he had known, that he wished he had been there for her the way a father should be. Emma felt her chest tighten. She had never heard that tone from him before. Around them, guests stood unsure of what to do. Some quietly moved away, giving space. Others stayed, pretending to focus on their phones or conversations, but still listening. The joy of the engagement party had dimmed, replaced by a careful, respectful silence. Lily stepped forward again. She hugged Emma tightly, without hesitation. She said she was proud of her, her voice shaking. She admitted she felt hurt too, but more than that, she felt amazed. Emma held her sister close, letting herself lean into the comfort. Uncle Richard stood off to the side, his expression heavy with regret. He apologized quietly, saying he never meant to expose something so personal. Emma nodded, not ready to forgive or blame him fully. The damage was done, and pointing fingers would not fix it. Helen finally touched Emma's arm. The contact was gentle but firm. She said she wished Emma had trusted them, that family was meant to share both struggles and successes. Her voice broke as she spoke, and tears slipped down her cheeks. Emma felt her own tears fall then, unable to hold them back anymore. Frank placed a hand on Emma's shoulder, a rare gesture. He did not say much, but the weight of his hand carried meaning. It was his way of saying he was there now, even if he had not been before. The room slowly began to breathe again. Quiet conversations resumed. The music played softly, though no one really listened to it. The celebration did not return to what it was, but it did not completely fall apart either. Guests approached Emma cautiously. Some congratulated her. Others offered kind words. A few avoided her altogether. Emma accepted the reactions without protest. She knew everyone needed time, just like she did. Her parents stayed close. Helen kept glancing at her, as if afraid she might disappear. Frank asked simple questions, careful ones, about her life, her work, her plans. Emma answered honestly, for once, without hiding. It felt strange, but also freeing. The engagement party ended earlier than planned. People said their goodbyes quietly. Hugs were exchanged. Smiles were weaker but sincere. Lily thanked everyone for coming, her voice steady despite everything. As the hall slowly emptied, Emma stood with her family near the door. The air felt different now. Heavier, but also more real. The truth had changed the night. It had shaken them all. But beneath the shock and confusion, something new had started to form. Not full understanding yet, not complete forgiveness, but the possibility of it. Emma realized that family bonds could stretch without breaking, even when tested in the harshest light. And as they walked out together, she knew that whatever came next would be faced openly, not hidden in silence anymore. The days after the engagement passed slowly, as if time itself needed space to settle. The party ended, the guests went home, but the truth stayed, quiet and heavy, following them into everyday life. Emma returned to her routine, but nothing felt the same. Phone calls with her parents became longer. Pauses that once felt awkward now carried meaning. Helen asked questions, careful and gentle. Frank listened more than he spoke. They were learning, step by step, who their daughter really was. There were moments of discomfort. Moments when old habits returned and silence tried to fill the gaps again. But Emma did not let it. She spoke, even when her voice felt unsure. She shared pieces of her life she once kept locked away. Slowly, trust began to grow. Lily visited Emma one afternoon, sitting with her at the kitchen table. She joked about how strange the engagement night had been, then grew serious. She admitted she wished she had known earlier, but said she understood now. She told Emma she admired her strength. Hearing that made something inside Emma soften. Emma thought often about the house. The walls that once symbolized privacy now felt like something else. It was still her safe place, but no longer a hiding spot. She invited her parents to visit. The idea scared her, but she knew it mattered. When they finally came, Helen walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, imagining the life Emma had lived there alone. Frank stood quietly, taking it all in. He said he was proud. The word was simple, but it stayed with Emma long after they left. The past could not be changed. The silence, the distance, the missed moments were real. But they no longer defined her story. Emma learned that independence did not mean shutting people out. Strength did not require loneliness. She realized that sharing her truth did not make her weaker. It made her human. The engagement night became something they talked about openly. Not as a disaster, but as a turning point. The moment everything stopped, then started again in a different way. Emma stood one evening at her window, watching the city lights, thinking about how far she had come. Her life was still busy, still demanding, but now it felt fuller. She had faced the truth. She had spoken it aloud. And in doing so, she had reclaimed not just her story, but her place within her family. The house remained standing, strong and quiet, just like her. But now, it held something new inside it. Connection.